They tell you you're too quiet, too intense, too serious. You enter a room and conversations soften. Not because you're wrong, but because you see things others would rather not notice. You don't laugh when everyone laughs. You don't chase what everyone chases. And when you speak, people shift uncomfortably as if something invisible has been exposed. So eventually you stop speaking. You smile when expected. You nod when required. You learn the art of blending in while feeling completely out of place. And late at night, when the noise fades, a question creeps in. What if something is wrong with me? But what if that question itself is the lie? What if the problem isn't your mind, but the world it's forced to live in? This is the silent reality of deep thinkers. Not the kind measured by grades or titles, but the kind that questions meaning, notices contradictions, and refuses to swallow comforting illusions. And according to philosophy, this kind of intelligence has always come with a cost: isolation. Not because the thinker rejects people, but because society quietly rejects the thinker. It starts early. In classrooms filled with voices, you feel strangely alone. While others enjoy the moment, your mind drifts elsewhere. Why do people say things they don't mean? Why does small talk feel empty? Why does everything important feel unspoken? You're not trying to be different. You just can't unsee what you see. And slowly you realize something painful. You are observing life more than participating in it. As years pass, the gap widens. You learn that honesty makes people uneasy, that asking why too often kills the mood, that depth, while praised in theory, is unwelcome in practice. So you censor yourself, not because you lack thoughts, but because you have too many. You become quieter, not shy, strategic. You notice how quickly people misinterpret silence as arrogance, depth as judgment, curiosity as superiority. But the truth is simpler. You are tired of translating your mind into something digestible, tired of shrinking your insights to fit conversations that never go anywhere, tired of explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand. Here lies the great contradiction. Society claims to admire intelligence, yet it emotionally punishes those who carry it in its raw form. We celebrate genius in history books but avoid it in real life. We quote philosophers but recoil from people who think like them. Because real intelligence doesn't just solve problems, it disrupts comfort. It questions traditions, it challenges narratives, it exposes contradictions people have built their lives around. And nothing terrifies a group more than someone who sees through the script. You become too much, too analytical, too serious, too intense. Not because you are, but because you reflect something others avoid within themselves. The emotional cost is invisible, but crushing. You can sit in a room full of people and feel completely alone. You crave connection, but not the shallow kind. You want resonance, understanding, someone who doesn't just hear words but hears meaning. And when that connection never arrives, doubt creeps in. Am I broken? But philosophy offers a different answer. The world was never designed for minds that see too clearly. Most societies operate on unspoken rules. Don't question too deeply, don't disrupt the mood, don't challenge what keeps people comfortable. Blend in, agree, move along. And when someone refuses, not loudly but quietly, the group reacts. Not with logic, with discomfort. Because independent thinking threatens collective illusion. This isn't stupidity, it's psychology. Humans evolved to survive in groups. Belonging meant safety. Standing out meant danger. So when a thinker questions the assumptions everyone else lives by, something ancient is triggered. This person is risky, not because they're hostile, but because they're uncontrollable. They don't follow scripts. They don't echo opinions, they don't seek approval, and that makes them unpredictable. In schools, these minds are labeled disruptive. In workplaces, they're told to stop overthinking. In social circles, they're slowly excluded. Not violently, quietly. Invitations fade, messages slow, opportunities vanish without explanation. And eventually, the thinker learns the most painful lesson of all. Truth doesn't always create connection. Sometimes it creates distance. So they adapt. They wear masks. They simplify themselves. They learn when to stay silent, not because they lack courage, but because experience has taught them the price of honesty. And society gets exactly what it wants: muted intelligence, silent depth, brilliance buried beneath self-doubt. This is the tragedy no one talks about. We live in an age that praises intelligence, but only the kind that behaves, only the kind that doesn't disturb emotions, only the kind that fits inside trends, slogans, and algorithms. But real intelligence is messy. It doesn't arrive politely, it doesn't flatter egos, it doesn't care about fitting in. It sees through games and refuses to play. And when you stop playing, you stop belonging. That is the quiet exile of the thinking mind. But philosophy insists on something radical. This exile is not a failure. It's a signal, a sign that your mind operates on a different frequency, that your awareness extends beyond surface reality, that you were never meant to drown in noise. The loneliness you feel is not proof of weakness, it's evidence of depth. And in the sessions ahead, we'll explore why thinkers throughout history walked this same path, why isolation often accompanies clarity, and how solitude, when understood correctly, becomes not a punishment, but a form of power. If this session resonated with you, take a moment to like the video. It helps the quiet paradox reach minds like yours. If intelligence truly made life easier, then the deepest thinkers would be the most at peace. But history tells a different story. Again and again, the people who see the most suffer the most. Not because they are cruel, not because they are arrogant, but because their clarity creates discomfort in others. To understand why society resists intelligent minds, we need to confront something uncomfortable. Intelligence doesn't just reveal truth, it exposes insecurity. When you speak with depth, some people don't hear your ideas. They hear a reminder of what they don't understand. And that reminder hurts. This is where admiration quietly turns into resentment. At first, people may praise your intelligence. They call you smart. They ask for your opinions. But over time, something shifts. Your insight starts making them question themselves. Your questions poke holes in their certainty. Your presence highlights gaps they didn't know existed. And the ego does not respond to this with curiosity. It responds with defense. This is not a flaw in individuals, it's a feature of human psychology. Most people don't want truth. They want stability. They want their beliefs to feel solid, their identity to feel safe, their place in the world to remain unquestioned. And intelligence, real intelligence, does the opposite. It asks, why do we believe this? Who benefits from this idea? What happens if this is wrong? These questions don't attack people directly, but they attack the foundations people stand on. And when foundations shake, fear follows. This is why intelligent individuals are often labeled, not engaged. Too intense, overthinking, negative, not a team player. These labels are shields. They protect fragile certainty from deeper examination. Psychology even has a name for this pattern: the Dunning-Kruger effect. It describes how people with limited understanding often overestimate their competence, not because they are stupid, but because they lack the awareness to see their limitations. Now introduce a genuinely intelligent person into that environment. someone who sees nuance, someone who understands complexity, someone who doesn't oversimplify reality. Suddenly, the illusion cracks, and instead of learning, many choose rejection because learning requires humility. And humility is uncomfortable. So, intelligence becomes threatening not because it dominates, but because it reveals. This plays out everywhere. In workplaces where efficiency is praised, but only if it doesn't disrupt hierarchy. In schools where obedience is rewarded more than curiosity. In social groups where harmony is valued over honesty. And online where algorithms punish nuance and reward repetition. Complex ideas don't go viral. Simple emotions do. Outrage, validation, tribal thinking. So thinkers adapt or disappear. They soften their language. They stop sharing insights. They watch their words carefully. And over time, something tragic happens. They begin to doubt themselves. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I should think less. Maybe silence is safer. This is how society slowly trains intelligent minds to shrink, not through force, through exhaustion. But history shows us this pattern is not new. Socrates was executed not for being violent, but for asking questions. Galileo was silenced not for being wrong, but for challenging authority. Nikola Tesla died isolated, not because he lacked genius, but because he refused to play power games. Even today, truth tellers are tolerated only until they disrupt comfort. As long as intelligence entertains, it's welcomed. The moment it confronts, it's rejected. And here's the cruel irony. The same society that suppresses intelligent individuals later celebrates them after they are gone, after their ideas are safe, after their challenge no longer threatens the present. Genius is loved retroactively, never in real time. This is why many intelligent people feel like outsiders, not because they are antisocial, but because their minds operate ahead of the emotional curve. They don't just react, they reflect. And reflection slows you down in a world addicted to speed. It makes you pause where others rush, question where others assume, resist where others conform. And conformity is the glue of most social systems. Break that glue, and you are pushed to the edges. Not loudly, not cruelly, but subtly you are talked over, ignored, excluded. Until one day you realize something sobering. Belonging often requires self-betrayal, and intelligent minds struggle with that trade. Because once you see through a lie, you can't willingly live inside it. This is why deep thinkers often feel torn. They crave connection, but not at the cost of authenticity. They want intimacy, but not built on pretending. So they choose a difficult path: partial isolation, selective silence, inner independence. And while that path is lonely, it preserves something vital: integrity. The refusal to dilute your mind for approval, the refusal to numb your awareness just to fit in. This resistance you feel from the world, it's not random. It's a reaction. Your clarity threatens comfort, your depth disrupts illusion, your presence raises questions others are not ready to answer, and instead of rising to your level, many choose to pull away. But here is the turning point. Understanding this changes everything. Because once you realize rejection is not always a verdict on your worth, but often a response to your awareness, you stop internalizing it. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what does my mind see that others avoid? This doesn't make you superior, it makes you responsible. Responsible for choosing truth over approval, depth over popularity, meaning over noise. And in the next session, we'll explore the most misunderstood idea of all. Why solitude, when embraced consciously, is not a curse for intelligent minds, but the environment where they finally become whole. If this perspective resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. The quiet paradox is built for minds that refuse to live on the surface. By the time you reach this point, something should feel different, not lighter, not happier, clearer. Because once you understand why the world resists intelligent minds, a new question emerges. What are you supposed to do with a mind that doesn't belong to the crowd? Most advice fails here. Be more social. Stop overthinking. Lower your expectations. But none of that works because it asks you to amputate the very thing that defines you. Philosophy offers a harder answer. Not adaptation, not conformity, but solitude. Not the kind forced on you by rejection, but the kind you choose. This is where many misunderstand thinkers like Schopenhauer. They assume solitude is bitterness, withdrawal, escapism. It isn't. It's alignment. When Schopenhauer wrote that a person can be truly themselves only when alone, he wasn't praising loneliness. He was identifying a psychological law. Depth requires space. A mind that sees clearly cannot breathe in constant noise. A consciousness that questions cannot survive on endless distraction. And yet, modern life treats solitude as a failure. If you're alone, something must be wrong. If you prefer silence, you must be broken. If you withdraw, you must be antisocial. But this belief is recent and deeply flawed. Most great ideas in history were born in isolation. Not crowds, not committees, stillness. Solitude is where the mind stops performing. No one to impress, no one to dilute your thoughts for, no one demanding simplicity when reality is complex. In solitude, your thoughts no longer collide with expectations, they unfold. This is why intelligent people often feel relief when alone. Not emptiness, the relief of not translating yourself, the relief of not pretending, the relief of not shrinking. For the first time, your inner world matches your outer environment. Quiet meets quiet, but solitude also reveals something uncomfortable: your own depth. When distractions disappear, you're left with yourself, your thoughts, your doubts, your unresolved questions. This is why most people avoid being alone. They are not afraid of silence, they are afraid of themselves. But intelligent minds, whether they realize it or not, are already living inwardly. They reflect, they analyze, they replay moments, meanings, patterns. Solitude doesn't create this intensity, it gives it direction. Instead of turning inward as anxiety, it turns inward as understanding. Instead of becoming rumination, it becomes insight. This is the turning point. Loneliness says, I am missing something outside of me. Solitude says, I am meeting something within me. And once that shift happens, rejection loses its power. When you stop depending on external validation, the crowd can no longer control you. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, is this true? This is not arrogance, it's independence. The world runs on approval, likes, status, belonging. But intelligent minds eventually realize something unsettling. Belonging often comes at the cost of truth. So they choose differently. They build a relationship with their own mind. They develop inner standards instead of external ones. They stop chasing recognition and start cultivating clarity. This is why solitude feels dangerous to society. A person who doesn't need validation cannot be easily manipulated. They don't follow trends blindly. They don't adopt beliefs for comfort. They don't surrender their judgment to the loudest voice. They think, and thinking people are hard to control. But solitude is not isolation forever, it is preparation. It sharpens perception, it strengthens emotional self-sufficiency, it teaches you how to stand without applause. So when you do engage with the world, you're no longer seeking permission, you're choosing presence. You become selective, not withdrawn. You don't need many connections, you need real ones. One conversation with depth outweighs 1,000 shallow interactions. One honest exchange outweighs years of polite emptiness. And when those connections appear, and they do, slowly, rarely, you recognize them immediately because they don't drain you. They resonate. This is the quiet reward of the intelligent path. Not popularity, not approval, but alignment. You stop forcing yourself into rooms that don't fit. You stop shrinking ideas that deserve space. You stop apologizing for depth. And the loneliness that once felt like a wound transforms. It becomes a compass, pointing you away from noise, toward meaning, toward truth. This is what most people never realize. The pain of being misunderstood often precedes the strength of self understanding. The exile comes before the clarity. And once clarity arrives, the world loses its grip. You no longer need everyone to understand you. You no longer need society's permission to exist as you are. You stand quietly, grounded, aware, intact, not above others, not against them, but independent of their approval. If you have felt out of place your entire life, if your thoughts feel heavier than conversations around you, if you've been told you're too much when you were simply being honest, you are not defective. You are not failing at life. You are navigating it at a deeper level. And depth always comes with distance. But that distance is not emptiness, it's perspective. So let the world misunderstand you if it must. Let it label you if it needs to. Let it move at a pace that no longer suits you. You don't need to run with the crowd. You need to see clearly, and those who see clearly often walk alone. Not because they were rejected, but because they refused to betray their own mind. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Not opinions, insight. There comes a moment, often unnoticed, when something shifts, not outside you, inside. You stop fighting the world for acceptance. You stop trying to explain yourself to people who only hear what comforts them. And for the first time, you stand still inside your own mind. This is not resignation. It's recognition. You recognize that your awareness is not a mistake, that your sensitivity is not a flaw, that your questions were never meant to be silenced, only refined. Most people live outward. They move from reaction to reaction, from desire to desire, from approval to approval. They are busy but not awake. The intelligent mind is different. It pauses, it reflects, it notices patterns beneath behavior, motives beneath words, fear beneath confidence. And once you see these layers, you can't unsee them. This is why returning to normal feels impossible. Normal is unconscious repetition. Normal is inherited beliefs. Normal is emotional autopilot. Awareness breaks that spell. But awareness comes with a price. You begin to see how much of life is performance, how often people speak without meaning, how rarely they ask themselves why. And this creates a quiet distance, not out of judgment, but out of incompatibility. You don't hate people, you understand them too well to idealize them. And that understanding changes how you move through the world. You become slower to react, more careful with your energy, less impressed by noise. This is the moment intelligence stops being a burden and starts becoming discipline. You stop scattering your thoughts. You stop leaking your insight into rooms that can't hold it. You stop casting pearls into conversations built for gravel. Instead, you turn inward with intention. You read differently, think differently, listen differently, not to escape life, but to meet it honestly. This is where philosophy stops being theory and becomes practice. You no longer ask, how do I fit in? You ask, how do I live truthfully? That question changes everything because now your life is no longer organized around belonging, it's organized around alignment. You choose work that doesn't numb you, even if it doesn't impress others. You choose relationships that allow silence, not just entertainment. You choose ideas that challenge you, not flatter you. And slowly, something stabilizes inside you, a center. You no longer feel pulled apart by contradiction. You no longer crave constant validation. You no longer feel threatened by misunderstanding. You are anchored. This is the quiet power of being awake. Not loud confidence, not dominance, not superiority, but self possession. You know who you are, even if others don't. You know what you value, even if it's unpopular. You know what matters, even if it's invisible. And that knowing cannot be taken from you. The world may still misunderstand you, it may still overlook you, it may still reward louder, simpler minds, but it no longer defines you. You move through life like a deep current beneath the surface, unseen, steady, undeniable. You stop needing to convince. You stop needing to prove. You stop needing to belong everywhere. You belong within yourself. And here's the final truth few ever hear. The mind that isolates you early in life is the same mind that will free you later. What once felt like exile becomes sovereignty. What once felt like loneliness becomes clarity. What once felt like being lost becomes orientation. You were never meant to disappear into the crowd. You were meant to see, to question, to refine, to understand. And understanding, real understanding, has always been rare. So if this journey has felt heavy, if awareness has felt lonely, if thinking deeply has cost you connection, know this: you didn't lose the game, you stepped out of it. And in doing so, you reclaimed something far more valuable than belonging: your mind, your integrity, your freedom. Sit with that, let it settle. And if something in you recognizes this path, not emotionally, but quietly, then you already know you are not broken, you are awake.